become world champion, you require many attributes and skills. And for Hanno Prettner, 6 times world champion in RC aerobatics and 8 times champion of the Tournament of Champions at Las Vegas, the story begins here at Klagenfurt at his home. We're sitting in Hanno's trophy room surrounded by the most magnificent display of cups, vases and trophies that Hanno has won for radio control flying over the years. But of course, Hanno, it didn't start this way.
Yes, you are right, it did not start in this way. It started completely different with free flight and also with U-control flying. So when I was a boy in age of approximately 7 years, then we went to a local village and we saw a display on U-control flying. And I was so impressed by this U-control flying that I pushed my father, that I pushed my daddy to buy me such a U-control aircraft. And he told me, okay, I can have it, but I must have the best degrees at school. And I was lucky that just at that time I had it. And so this was the beginning of our model career, and we started with modeling. And the first time we built a free flight model with a small diesel engine inside. It was a Graupner Cadet type, a high wing model, real for free flight, and we really were impressed to see that the work, what we did, that the building was so successful that the model did perform and the model flew. And so it was the motivation to go on with model flying, and we flew the model everywhere, up on the mountains, in the valleys, and also the model did in the same way. It landed everywhere. It landed on the house roofs, it landed on the trees, it landed in bushes, and also it landed in the lake. So we had to do a lot to bring back the model, and this was real sport at that time.
And when did you find the magic virtues of radio control so that you wouldn't have to run after the model all the time?
The radio control business, or let's say radio control, the radio started at that time. These were single channel radios, and it was quite complicated to get one. It was quite complicated also to do the service and maintenance and to get it to work, and it was also very expensive. And my father bought a single channel transmitter radio, a single channel with a huge battery, it was necessary, and a long antenna on the transmitter. So this was the first what I remembered, but this one did not work properly. But then he bought a factory-made radio. This was the first Graupner radio, the Bellaphone A, single channel type, and this one was working properly, and so he installed the radio in different models, and he had good success, also in competing at championships and local competitions. And this was the beginning of our radio control career.
And in fact, you won your first trophy, which is just on your right-hand side, when you were only 13 years old. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I was proud to win this competition because this was not in the special children or youth category. This also was in the standard category, and I won it with the glider, and we had to fly the glider from top of a beautiful castle, standing on the bottom in the grass there and flying the model for a duration of 10 minutes. So we had to fly 2 rounds, and it was requested that they were counting the time from 10 minutes down to 0, and the best time was to do a landing just at 0 time in the spot, and I was able to do it both times exactly at 0 seconds.
And we are going to try to recreate this flight in the next couple of days and go up to the castle and fly an electric powered model in the same conditions.
Yes, because the castle is real beautiful, And so I am proud to show in this video, to show the castle how I did it in 1964, because this was my first victory in radio control flying. But at that time I really did not know that I will be so successful for the coming years.
So from these humble beginnings you went on to make aerobatics your specialist section, and in fact have been world champion 6 times and tournament of champion 8 times winner of that. Can you take us through from the beginning, your first entry into the World Aerobatic Championships, and the types of models you've flown and how things have developed from your point of view?
Yes, before I start with the World Championships, I just want to tell you that I also competed in the local aerobatic category. This was a category for high wing, let's say trainer models with 60 size engines and special maneuvers. It's in Austria. It's the step before you enter the international aerobatic category. So at that time we called it RC3 category. So this is for the younger people to get involved into aerobatics. And out of 22 competitions in which I was competing, I have won 21 competitions, and only at one competition the engine didn't work. So it was quite successful, and so I got the experience to be in the competition, to be in contest, to know how the pressure could be in the contest. And the first World Championships I was entering was after 1 year of practice in the international F3A category. So at the first time I flew 1971 in Doylestown in United States. Then the next World Championship was in Gorizia 1973. So I was number 4 at the first World Championships, and I nearly have won the World Championships in Gorizia, but we had bad luck or misunderstanding, so that my father was calling the landing approach at the wrong time. So with this maneuver I lost approximately 800-900 points, and I think I was 300 points behind the first. So I could have won this World Championships, but it was not possible. Even that out of 6 rounds I have won 5 rounds, and it was the first time that they invented the fly-off, and they were just counting the points of both rounds counted together of the fly-off. So, but it was no problem. So it was nice to be there, because I have learned a lot. I have learned how to get the how to live with the pressure, and how to work it out if you are not successful. And with this victory I learned a lot. And then the next World Championships was in Bern in Switzerland. So I was coming second. Then in 77 Springfield I was first at the World Championships. So it was my first World Championship win, and I was very proud and very happy. And I was using my Curari, my famous design Curari, and I think this gave me a lot of motivation to keep on with model flying, and also to try new maneuvers and to try new flying styles. So after 1977 I developed, from the Curari I developed a new model, and I wanted to fly this model, the Magic, in South Africa at the World Championships in Johannesburg. And everything was ready and everything was prepared, and I wanted to show how to fly the first time with the variable pitch propeller. But unfortunately at home we had rebuildings, and the electricians put an electric cable over the stairway, and I didn't recognize that there was a cable, and I fell over the cable and I broke my arm. So it was impossible to compete at that World Championships, and I think this was a real sad moment in my life, to know that everything is ready, to know that the model is perfect, to know that the practice was perfect, and not to be able to compete at the championships. And I think the hardest time was to wait until they were phoning me from South Africa who won the World Championships, because at that time I was reigning world champion. And it was real hard to sit at home and to wait and to think. So I was thinking all the time, why can I not be there, and why can I not be together with my friends and trying to compete and fighting with them. But this was life, and so I was motivated again to win again, or to try to win again the next World Championships. And the next World Championship was in Acapulco in Mexico, 81. And with the same model, with the same variable pitch propeller, with the same equipment which I wanted to fly in South Africa, I flew in Acapulco and I won this World Championship. So I was quite happy that I bring back the title, or I got back the title. And from that time on, I am real proud and I'm real happy that I was able to win all next coming World Championships in F3A aerobatics. So the next one was in Florida, in Pensacola, but this was a real change in our mind for designing the models. Because after Acapulco, I really had the most complicated model of the world. It had spoilers, it had flaps, it had air brakes, it had wheel brakes, it had variable pitch propeller, I don't know what else it had. There were so many complicated things. And I was thinking, because we had a long discussion there with FAI officials and CMF officials, that there is a big problem with youngsters coming into our sports of aerobatics. And I thought, personally, we had also a discussion with my father, and we thought, who can afford to buy such a complicated model, such a complicated aircraft? And then we made a total different approach. And at the first time when I was entering with the Calypso, this was the name of my new design, when I was test flying it in Pensacola, I think nearly everybody was laughing about the model, because they said, oh, Prettner is coming with a trainer model. But this trainer model flew quite well, and so I was able to win the World Championships again with this so-called trainer model, but it was a pure aerobatic model, but real simple, so that everybody can afford to build and buy this model and also to buy the equipment. It was just basic model with the tuned pipe under the wing, buried in a tunnel, with two-wheel landing gear, straight trailing edge. And when you look to the present pattern ships you have now, this was the basic design. So most of the model are having similar layout or similar shape to the Calypso. And this model flew well, and I think it was a good way, it was a new way to go, and we were able to see that the interest in model aerobatics was increasing, also for the youngsters, because they didn't have to spend so much money. And if you compare that the price of a variable pitch propeller is quite expensive, and this is exactly the crash zone of the model. So the first part which will hit the ground is definitely the propeller. And if you break the propeller, then the price is even a lot higher than the price for the engine. And so from the Calypso, after the Calypso, I developed a new model for the World Championships. The next one was in Fleberhof in Holland. It was the Suprafly. So I flew this one with quite good success, and I was able to win this World Championships. And after Holland, after the Suprafly, I developed a new model. This one was the Suprastar, and this model is the first production type aerobatic model which was produced. And the performance is enormous. It took a lot of work, a lot of research work, a lot of developing and testing for Easy Company, Oki Model Japan. They do the kit, and they really had a hard work, because I was looking real careful that everything must be perfect of that model. It is built according to my high request for World Championships. And everybody was surprised, like it was at that time when I was using a trainer model. When I was using the Calypso, everybody was surprised nearly in the same way that I was using a ready-to-fly aircraft at the World Championships. But it performed so well that it was not only possible to win the World Championships in Avignon, I also won exactly with the same model. I won the World Championships last year in Virginia in Chesapeake. So this shows the top quality of that model and how long ready-to-fly aircrafts can last, because this special Suprastar has approximately, let's say, at least more than 1,000 flights on the airframe, and it's still in good shape.
Good. We'll ask you to talk through the manoeuvres a little bit later, but before then, could you tell us something about the aeroplane?
That's my Suprastar design. It's a ready-to-fly model. It is produced by EC, Oki Model Company in Japan, and it's a real perfect airplane because they have the latest technology to produce this model. And it's designed for flying constant speed. Constant speed is so that I try to fly the model with nearly the same speed, going vertical upwards, going vertical downwards, and flying in horizontal level. It's powered by an OS engine. It's a long-stroke engine. It's a real special engine. It was developed for last year's World Championships, and I am proud that because of my success at the World Championships, OS named this engine Hanno Special. So we did a lot of new inventions in this engine. There are a lot of new ideas, and it's the most quiet and the most powerful two-stroke engine in 61 size, which is available right now. And the reason is that the whole setup was perfectly done. So beginning from the carburetor, going to the internal timings, also to the exhaust timings, and also the design of the tune pipe. So the engine setup is a whole combination, and it works perfect. And it was at the last World Championships, the engine, the two-stroke, which did less noise, which had the lowest noise. And the radio I'm using on this Suprastar World Championship model, it's the Graupner computer radio, it's the MC18. It has the ability so that I can change the software. It's very quickly, it can be done. And so I have the possibility to set up everything perfectly for the conditions where I want to fly this model, in sea level conditions or in higher altitude, and so I'm happy with all this equipment I'm using.
Now this is the actual model you flew at the World Championships in America last year. How many flights approximately has it now done?
It has at least more than 1,000 flights, because I was using it also last year, and I also was using it 2 years before at the World Championships in Avignon, France. And if you take in account that I had to practice for the World Championships in France, and I did a lot of practice because the model there was brand new, and then in the 2 years in between the two World Championships, I already was flying it at international competitions, and last year I did also the practice for the last year's World Championships in the United States. And so I think it's quite in a good shape.
So it doesn't have to be a tremendously expensive hobby to get to the top, or perhaps it's a little bit more costly getting there.
Yes, it's not, how can I say, it's not an inexpensive price which you have to pay for this superstar model, but you get the guarantee that if you buy such a model, it's exactly the same what I am using at the World Championships, because everything is coming out of a jig and is molded, and the wing is pressed, I think, with 8 tons, so it has to be straight, and it's perfectly straight.
Hanno, we've just watched you demonstrating some of the FAI schedule manoeuvres, something you must have done many hundreds of times before. Can you now do them in your sleep?
I think yes, because when you prepare for World Championships, you have to fly the maneuvers very often, and always I try to fly it also in difficult conditions, so with wind, with crosswind, with headwind, with tailwind, because this also can happen during the competitions. And probably, as you know, I have won the World Championships now 6 times, and I am totally 10 years world champion in F3A category.
You have stayed faithful to the two-stroke engine. Is that your intention in the future, as far as you can see?
That's a difficult question. The reason was because I wanted to stay with the Superstar design, and when I switched to OS engines, I was quite happy because OS company developed a fantastic engine. It's the best two-stroke engine and the most powerful two-stroke engine, and of course also the most quiet two-stroke engine I ever was using. So I'm quite happy and I'm proud that OS Engines has named this engine, which I was using at the World Championships, as Hanno Special.
And so the Hanno Prettner Special 61 two-stroke engine is really selling like hot cakes. But do you think that the four-stroke development will eventually mean going over to that type of engine?
Yes, I think the work OS company did was enormous, and they are still improving the engine and improving it. So at the first time when they invented the 124 stroke, it was just a standard one. Then they improved it to the Surpass. Now they have the Surpass 2, and they also have the Surpass with supercharger. And the supercharger engine has tremendous power. But I personally like the boxer type of engines, for example the Gemini. And I think this engine will be a perfect one for modeling because it has nearly no vibrations, it has fantastic response on the throttle, it reacts real quick, and also the sound is very nice. It has less noise and it works great. So I think I could, or maybe I want to use it for the new championships, but at the moment it was not enough time to prepare the models because the time was real short when I switched to OS company. It was not enough time before the World Championships. Now we are preparing the models for the Tournament of Champions. So definitely I will not use such a four-stroke engines in this year in my competition models. But could be done for the next World Championships. But I have to think about in winter time when I do all the designing and when we do it for the coming season.
The new OS supercharged engine, as you say, produces tremendous power. But do you think there is therefore a danger that the organisers will change the aerobatic schedules to make use of this extra power?
We have in aerobatics, we have the rule that the judges also are giving points, bonus points, for the noise of the flight. As quiet the flight is, as better bonus points you are getting. And the problem with the supercharger is that it produces so much power that you have to use bigger propellers. If you don't use bigger propellers, if you use the same propeller, the RPM is so high that the propeller causes a lot of noise. And so it's better to use bigger props at lower RPMs to cut down the noise level. And I don't think they will change the maneuvers or they will fit to this type of engines because you have to make bigger models, maybe heavier models. But what I want to do is I want to reduce the RPMs of this engine because then the whole engine has still a lot more power than all standard four-stroke engines, and it will be a lot more quiet by reducing the RPMs, and it still will have enough power for all aerobatic maneuvers.
How would you like to see FAI aerobatics developing in the future?
I would like to see it that the constant speed flying style will continue, because I personally feel it's real nice to watch, and I am proud that I think I was the first one who invented this type of flying with my huge Dalotel, which I was using 78 with the gear drive engine at the Tournament of Champions, at the Las Vegas Tournament of Champions. So I was able to show how it could look like if you fly constant speed. And also this type of flying was slowly getting into F3A aerobatics. But I personally feel the problem at the moment is that there are so many good pilots at the world that it's a real problem to select in the finals who is the best. And so I recommend, or what I would do is for the finals really to increase the number of maneuvers and to make it a lot more difficult. So this should, how you say, absorb the boys from the youngsters or the boys from the men, and so that you can tell more easy who is the best, because now everybody flies the same maneuvers. So for the standard qualifications we should keep on the same maneuvers, so that also countries which are not so experienced, which do not have so much time to practice, or which do not have the perfect equipment, that they also can compete. But then, maybe for the first 10 or first 15 pilots for the fly-off, there should be real hard maneuvers. So for example, like rolling circles or like snapping maneuvers or real hard maneuvers so that you easily can do mistakes. And at the Tournament of Champions, it's done in that way that the one is winning the contest who makes less mistakes, because everybody there is doing mistakes.
And that, of course, includes an unknown schedule at the Tournament of Champions, so that puts more pressure on the ability of the pilot rather than the aeroplane and engine combination.
Yes, that's true, because you have to fly and you have to react and you have to think very quickly. But if you are the best pilot, if you don't have perfect material, you cannot be perfect. It's always, I compare it always, the whole system with the gear drive. If only one gear is not perfect, the whole system fails. So I always tried to have the best available equipment, and I am quite happy now because I know I have the best equipment. So this is the best engine with OS engines. The same happens with the radios, with J.R. Grabner radios, and also for the model design. The models are very nice done, perfectly done by an easy company, and for the Tournament of Champions we have to do our own models because they are so complicated and they are so big and they have to build tremendously light, and so it's not affordable to have a mass production for this type of models, for the TOC models. They are too big and they are getting way too expensive for production types.
You said before that there isn't one secret to becoming world champion in aerobatics, but a whole series of secrets. In other words, you must get everything right. And that, I suppose, only comes from working at it solidly, providing a good base, and developing from there.
Yes, that's true, because everybody flies real good, and just you can have the success at competitions, you can just make your victory with details. So the number or the sum of all details is the victory. And so you have to try very carefully where you can improve, because the level of the international flying standard increased a lot during the past years.
The big Supra, Hanno, really lives up to its name. It's got a big performance, it's a big model, and really flies well on this new OS 35 engine.
Yes, I'm quite happy with the performance of all the equipment. That's a brand new model. It was designed as a bigger scale of my famous Supra series of a combination of the Supra Star and the Supra Fly. And also brand new is the engine. It's the new Big X1 from OS engine. And this combination gives you all the power what you need to do the tricks and real ultimate maneuvers for modern aerobatics.
Also capable of glider towing, indeed it's fitted for that.
Yes, of course. This is the fantastic of this model, that it has such a wide range to fly it. So you can use it for high performance maneuver, to test for Las Vegas type maneuvers or for World Championship maneuvers, to practice these maneuvers. Or you also can tow gliders. You just have to change the propeller to a lower pitch propeller, and as you could see in the flight, it was possible to make a maximum glider tow, nearly going up 45 to 60 degrees up, and within, let's say, seconds, the glider is in its final position. But you also can use it as a trainer model, because you can use such a wide range of engines. It can be flown with two-stroke engines and with all different type of four-stroke engines.
And we should also remind people that it comes ARTF with very little work indeed needed to complete it.
Yes, that's right. It can't be finished, it can't be assembled within some hours because the whole equipment is fitted. So the original manifold of OS engines is fitted to this big Supra kit, and you don't have to solder or you don't have to make real heavy metal work for this to fit the engine.
And with the 45-degree mounting of the engine, it makes the silencer position very, very easy to fit in.
Yes, this is from my Calypso time, where it was my first time that I have mounted that engine 45 degrees down sideways. This gives the possibility that you just have a straight bend in the manifold, and it was done in the same way here on the big Supra.
Hanno, you've now perfected a number of specialist aerobatic manoeuvres which certainly entertain the public, even if they're not absolute pure aerobatic manoeuvres as far as the competitions are concerned. Can you just talk us through one or two of those?
Yeah, there are some special maneuvers which I invented in aero modeling. One maneuver is the Hanno screw, another maneuver is the helicopter spin, or also the German name is Purzelbaum of another maneuver. I call it in English, I call it horizontal or vertical Lampschabachs. The main thing to do this maneuver is really to have an overpowered aeroplane. So this means that the power should be so much that the model can go vertical without stopping. And then it's also necessary to try to have short moment arms on the model to move the CG as far back as possible, and also to have big throws on your control surfaces, for example on the ailerons, on the rudder, and also on the elevator. And to do these maneuvers, it's always a combination of the perfect timing and of the perfect throw at a certain time you have to do to start this maneuver. So every model is different, and it's only basic information what you have to do, because you have to find out by yourself how the model reacts and how you have to do this maneuver, because some models need more aileron, some need less aileron. On special models you have not to touch the aileron for different maneuvers. So it's just a basic information, or also it's depending on the knife edge loop. If you want to do the knife edge loop, you have to have tremendous power, and the model must have a wide, high fuselage. If the fuselage is not high enough, you don't have a chance to go around, because this is coming down this way and going into knife edge, finishing the loop. This is the most critical part. It's no problem going up if the power is fine, but going down this, you have to go down, you have to reduce the power, and the trick is, if you are there, then you have to increase the power so that you are getting more airstream from the propeller on your rudder, and this will help you to make it really round. And it's always very exciting to see if the cables of the rudder will be strong enough, and if the pilot really has its nerves strong enough, because this is the most critical part. Or also it's the flat circle, so you have to put full rudder in, and you just have to balance the model. And it's very critical, because the model has to be balanced with ailerons, with elevator, and also with rudder. So if the model has the tendency to climb when you give full rudder to this side, and you have to react it with the opposite aileron, and then you have to control it with down elevator. This means you have exactly the same controls for a negative snap roll, negative flick roll. And if you do it too close to the ground, and if you have too much rudder, then the model will make a flip. and within tenths of a second the model is in the ground. So please, if you start and if you try this maneuver, start it high enough. And safety is always the most important thing. Either if you fly in a competition or either if you fly on a local airfield. So if you try these maneuvers, try not to fly it above the crowd or above other pilots who will fly in your airspace or who will fly at the same airfield.
So in a lot of those manoeuvres, the fuselage is actually creating lift, and the engine needs to be very powerful because you're not going directly forwards, you're in fact going sidewards, and therefore it is much, much less efficient, there's far more drag.
Yes, especially in this flat circle, there is the most load on the engine. So there is no other maneuver which needs so much power than this flat circle. And as more power you have, as shorter, with less radius, and as perfect you can fly this flat circle. And it looks spectacular because it really looks like a U-control type of model. Entering now. Power tower now, going up, roll, 4-point roll, coming down, hump turn, snap roll right and snap roll left. Going inverted, again. Turn. Half Cuban 8. Square 8. Vertical snap. And into Hanno screw and Laufschlag and flat spin.
Hanno, two easy ARTF fun fly machines. We're going to see them perform in a few minutes, and they are both really exciting for the average model. Can you tell us a little bit first about the Focke-Wulf 190?
The Focke-Wulf 190 is the warbird from the Second World War, from the German Air Force, and it was used for myself in this type of flying, also to show some scale models from the warbird series. It's equipped with the OS Surpass 91, and this gives tremendous power to this flying machine, and it has also retractable landing gear, and it's real fun to fly because I like to perform with this Focke-Wulf 190 let's say realistic type maneuvers. So I fly the victory roll, and I fly some battle shooting types and some slow passes with the wheels in and the wheels out, and I like that model because of the nice color scheme. So everything is ready to fly and the color is already on. Otherwise it would be too much work for myself to do all the spraying and the nice details which are on the Focke-Wulf. And besides of that, it's a real nice model also for the average pilots. So you can do, if you like, also hot dog flying. As you will see, I will perform also Hanno's cruise and Lamscherwag, and it can be flown real extreme aerobatics, but it should be flown realistically. So this means you always should try to fly the model in the way as the full-size aircraft is doing it.
And that brings us on to the Extra 230, which in its full-size form is very aerobatic, and I'm sure the model will be also.
Yes, you will see. Normally I fly this model together with music, so I do my performance with special Austrian type of music, and this is liked by many spectators all over the world, especially on the Extra. This model is very nice to fly, so it's very maneuverable, and you can do many tricks and you can do many nice maneuvers. So it's a good solution also for average pilots if they want to practice aerobatic maneuvers, but it's also a nice solution for experts if they want to fly real extreme ultra aerobatics. So at that model the engine is a real goodie. It's a special engine, it's a OS 120 Gemini, but not with single carburetor. It was modified with 2 carburetors. So it's a prototype from OS to try how much power increase can be done, and the response is instantly. So it reacts very quickly on the throttle stick, and it makes a nice appearance together with this model.
And a very nice sound too.
Yes, of course, the sound is very nice, and it's necessary because here in Austria we have problems with noise, and so we always try to cut down the noise, and so that's a new way and a nice way to go, because with the twin engine, with the Boxer type, you have a lot less vibrations than on the bigger 4-stroke engines.
The engine mount you use, is it a rubber damped one?
Yes, it's also soft mounted on soft blocks, and this eliminates also a lot of vibrations and a lot of noise, which can be caused also by the airframe. But especially easy kits are, as I call them, noiseless kits, because the covering material, the foam, is also reducing the noise. It's absorbing the noise. And so I think this is one of the secrets that my Superstar is so quiet in the air.
Hello, this morning we have the Sportsman 45, but a different version of it with floats, and I notice also an underfin. Could you tell us a little bit about this particular model and its availability as a kit?
Yes, it's an easy kit. It's the Sportsman 45, and I was flying it just in the standard version, together with of course, with a 10cc engine with an OS long stroke. And this model flew so beautiful that I thought by myself, oh, we should try to convert it to a float plane. And so Easy already has ready-to-fly floats. And so we were just adding the floats to the Sportsman 45. And it was, surprisingly, it flies real nice. It has a fantastic performance in slow flight. And of course, with this power of that engine, the takeoff on the water is no problem. Easy Sportsman 45 has an underfin, a water rudder, and this water rudder goes approximately 20 millimeters or 15 millimeters into the water. So it's very easy to steer it, and this is necessary because you have to move it in the water, and I don't need the standard rudders, the standard water rudders on the floats.
And it is also, of course, very adaptable because it can be used as a land plane too.
Yes, just by removing the back piano wire and putting two wheels in front here and removing the water rudder, the underfin, it can be flown as a standard land plane.
Hanno, although you are very, very busy doing display work, competition work, practicing and so on, you still manage to find time to help and encourage young people. I know that recently you've had a scheme that has been bringing in young people into the hobby.
Yes, that's right, and I love to work with young people and especially with children. So we have done a big competition in Austria with the biggest Austrian newspaper, and it was possible to get their support, and they gave me over a period of 10 issues, 2 double-sided pages to promote aeromodeling, and on those 10 times on those pages I was showing in this newspaper how to build the model, how to fly the model, how to trim the model, and also I gave instructions what they should do when they want to enter the competition. This competition was really successful. We did it all over Austria, and especially in Carinthia we were able to sell more. The newspaper gave away more than 1,000 kits of this model, and at the competition we had more than 250 entries. And so the children had good fun and had a great time because the competition was done in different categories. Up to 6 years, from 6 to 8 years, from 8 to 10 years, from 10 to 13 years, and I think it stopped at 15 years. Nearly all major model industry companies were sponsoring this event. So we got from Graupner JR radios for the first category, for the first prizes. Then we got very nice model kits from kit manufacturers. We also get small model engines from OS company, and also many accessories for modeling.
So the future for aeromodeling in Austria looks good.
Yeah, looks good, looks a lot better than maybe 5 or 10 years ago. So we are able to push the children, to motivate the children to fly aeromodels and to come to the flying fields and to see what's going on. And I'm also doing, together with the biggest Austrian bank, it's Raiffeisen, a special children program. They have a bee which is promoting this bank. It's called Sumsi bee, and I built a very big model of this bee with more than 2 meter wingspan and I'm flying this bee at children parties or at local festivities, or if we have other festivities also. And it's always good success to fly it, because this bee can drop sweets and candies and air balloons and little toys, and so it's
a
fun.
Good introduction for them. And I'm sure you'll agree, Hanno, that you have tremendous support from your family, and in particular from your father Hans, who comes out to assist you on all your flying.
Yes, and I'm really happy that I get this support from my family. So it's necessary to have this support, otherwise it's not possible to have such a success worldwide. And I want to thank to my family and also to my father, who is always with me all over the world. And each practice flight is like a competition flight, because he checks very carefully if this maneuver was okay, or if I could fly it better or in some different way. And so it's real necessary to have a trainer.
And finally, how do you see your future developments? Do you hope to keep in aerobatics for years to come, or does that depend a little bit on your family? And how much longer can you stand the pressure of keeping at the top? Because it is very, very real pressure now.
It is pressure, but if you don't take it as pressure, then it's no more a pressure. Because what I tried to do is I tried to invent new flying styles. So I really was pushing the constant speed flying style, and this motivates to keep on with flying. And I always was telling, as long as I have fun with flying, I will continue with flying. That's the most important thing on that hobby or sport or whatever you call it, that you have fun.
Hanno, we look forward to seeing you fly for many, many more years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. In this limited time, it's not possible to show all the tricks and how to do all these special maneuvers. So I think the best is to make a special video on how to do the maneuvers and how to trim the model and how to perform it, so that you can do nearly the same maneuvers as I do with my World Championship planes and with my airshow models.